and welcome to Dude Working Around, the podcast that's all about disability and mental health. Access needs are important to us, so let's begin with some audio descriptions. I'm Chandy, I'm a white male with a ginger beard and slightly short curly hair. Today I'm wearing a black top, and on the wall behind me are various images in frames, and the wall is a cream colour. Emma?
Hi, I'm Emma, and I am a white woman in my early 30s. I have long, wavy brown hair, and I'm wearing an all black top and cardigan and glasses, and my background is blurred, so you can't see it. But I'm in my bedroom/office.
Perfect. Description's done. Let's get into our ramp check. This is where we check in with each other and share news, updates before diving into the big stuff. No pressure, just a space to be honest, messy, or whatever we need. So there's been a bit of a gap between the last recording and this recording, for various reasons, and I'm sure we'll come into that. But Emma, how's your couple of weeks been?
It's gonna be like I mean, wait, have we talked since when was the last time we did talk?
I think when this goes out, there'll be no gap in between episodes, but I think last time we recorded it was 4 weeks ago.
Okay, so it was probably before my mom died. Well, my mom died, so things have been great. Is that awkward? That's so. It's fine. No, she did. It's cool. It's not cool, but like, why hide it?
I mean, from what we've talked about, I know we've talked off camera between last time we recorded and today, and the way you talk about your mum, it's like she seemed like an amazing person, and so I think like from what you said, like it sounds like what your plans are to help remember her going forward and stuff. I think she's obviously left a mark on you.
Just not just as mothers usually do, but my mom, she left a mark on me because she's my mom, but also because of who she was. And yeah, I think so. I've been grieving, but honestly, I've been sort of gaslighting myself because I have been moving through this, even in times of like complete just despair, just like overwhelming sadness. I don't feel out of control. I feel very aware of how I move through grief and how my brain processes. I feel like I'm moving through this in such a healthy way, and that's almost sort of like making me gaslight myself because I'm like, wait, does that mean, am I like delusional? Am I like actually like in crisis, or am I like what is like, I feel, because I think people expect, I don't know. I feel like okay even when I'm not okay. Like I feel pretty confident, and that's really weird because I have not felt like that in my life most of the time. I've usually responded to big things in my life very poorly. And so I'm proud of myself, but I'm also like, am I delusional? Am I like actually needing to like maybe have medication or something? Am I like not okay? Like, I think I'm sort of questioning my own ability to move through hardship in a healthy way.
But I think there's no right way of grieving. Like when you lose someone, there's no right or wrong way of, like you're dealing with the trauma and the stress and the anxiety of that person not being around. So it's natural to feel that you're in that space. I feel like I'm turning into a therapist now. But like,
well, I think the response is even like we're supposed to, like, I've been hearing that a lot, but it's like one thing I've learned so far is like, now some people respond to a traumatic or life-changing event, for me to move on and move forward with my life. But I think people I think that makes people uncomfortable. I think people, I don't know. I get that. I feel like it's also, it's a little misogynist and a little ableist.
Mhm. I think people have preconceived ideas of what grief looks like. Like they imagine it's that if they put themselves in that position, they'd be not able to do much. They'd feel very depressed, or like, how could I do anything without that person being there and stuff. And so I think it's their idea of how you should be as a person and how you should be responding. But if you are being honest with yourself and you're acknowledging that you do miss your mum, but also you remember those good times that you had with her, and you're able to kind of reflect on it in a way that suits you, I think that shows, I don't like the word, but resilience, and it shows that you're just being yourself and just dealing with it as you can.
Yeah. I mean, but I feel like it's, but I am dealing with it, but I feel like it's sort of, I don't know. I feel like it's, if you go through a big event in your life, like losing your mom or something, like it is traumatic, but it is, and then there is grief. It is a hardship, but I think people, when they hear those words, they also immediately associate with in crisis and clouded judgment and incapable of um, uh, having an awareness and being at a exaggerated or extreme emotional state. Um, and I don't feel like that's me. I mean, I'm feeling lots of I don't feel like I'm grieving. I'm moving through a trauma. I don't feel like I'm in crisis though. I really don't.
But that's good. I think the fact you're acknowledging that, and you know where you are, and kind of you're comfortable saying that, I think that's quite powerful.
Yeah, it's just, I think a lot of people don't believe that. I think, particularly for me as a woman, as a disabled woman, I think it's just interesting. I'm not sure. Um, yeah, I don't know. I feel like people are uncomfortable with just maybe intense things, and so they need to write it off as like, oh, she needs, and they don't. I don't know. Um, yeah, it's just interesting the way people get pathologized and dismissed when they're going through a big life event or a trauma. Um, so I don't know. Yeah, it was an interesting. So that makes me kind of gaslight myself. I'm like, oh, am I like absolutely out of my like, am I okay? But I do feel like that.
But
I
that's
don't know.
good.
Even when I'm not okay, I feel like a sense of calm, I guess,
Mm.
and confidence in my ability to handle it, I guess.
I think as well, like, we're expected to know how our mental health is, and for it to be good all the time, or like to give like a bit of off tangent example where like you meant to give 100% every single day, but giving 100% could be giving 5% today, 25% tomorrow, 40% the next day, and that's still 100% of what you can give that day. And it's the same for your mental health. Like, if your mental health is really shit today, that's one thing. If tomorrow it's still shit, but you're still trying and you're still doing what you can with the resources and the emotional abilities that you have that day, that's still amazing.
Yeah. And I think, I don't know, I guess right now I'll probably have a lot more to say 10 years from now, but right now, like, I, I think what's so important, like, whatever you're going through, like, nobody knows yourself better than you. And I don't know, I think, like, listen to your gut feeling and lean into the fact that you know yourself and you know how your body and your mind operate. And I don't know, I guess just you're the own expert on how you work. I guess just I leaned into that, and that's what's been really helpful. And I feel like, I don't know, just trust yourself. Trust yourself.
100%.
What have you been up to?
What happened then? Oh, I had a publisher reach out because I wrote a book when I left when I was made redundant. I wrote a book about being bullied and called Tumor Boy. And I always say, like, it sounds like an Avengers character or like a member of the Suicide Squad. And I hated it at school, but when I look back at it now, I'm like, I always dreamt of being a superhero. And like, I know that there's a big cliche like disability and superhero like thing. And I used to like find that really awkward because I'm like, I'm not a superhero. Like, I can barely walk up the stairs some days. I'm not doing what Superman or what Iron Man and stuff do. So I've created like a superhero that like admits that he's not the strongest. Like, he's a kid. He's like still learning about himself, and he's going through all these different things. And like the first one is him and his friend going on like an adventure to like the magical imaginary land that he's created in his head. But I was feeling overwhelmed about it because I'd been made redundant, and I was like, I don't have the energy for this. I just sent it to the publishers. One came back to me and they were like, yeah, to get this published, you have to pay us £2,500 minimum. And then I read through the contract and they were like, and you have to do all the marketing. And then if there's a film deal or like a TV series about the book, we want 50%.
It's really hard to get, and the publishing world is just like, it's very small. It's a very small field. So there's not like a lot of big publishing houses, and it's mostly, it's not a very diverse industry. And it's with a lot of gatekeeping, and it's really hard. My friend Mary also, she's a disability activist, and she published a children's book as well. And she went through a publishing house that is supposed to like be supportive of marginalized authors, and she like, it was a shit show. She really had a hard time, and it's really tough. I would say, like, if you decide to publish a book and go out on your like that, that's I mean, no matter what, just taking that on is really hard. Um, but that's awesome. And I feel like it's still one of those industries that if you it's not the end it's not having that experience doesn't mean, like, you don't absolutely need those things to be successful. You can successfully publish a book and have it do well without, you can do it on your own.
Yeah,
you really
and
can.
I think
It's one of the few industries where that's, I think, a possibility.
I put a post on LinkedIn after I had the deal, and I was like, I don't feel comfortable. And I emailed the publisher, and I was like, you realize you're asking a disabled person in a cost of living crisis to pay £2,500 to have their book published? And they were like, that's the only contract we offer. See you later. And I was like, well, that's told me what I've made the right choice not going with you. So then I put this post on social media saying that you can like self-publish. So they've gone through the process, and I spent literally the whole last week editing the book, getting all the illustrations done. They reached out to people to see if they could make illustrations, and it was going to be quite costly. And I was like, for this book, just do what I can with what I have available, and then hire someone to make the illustrations better next time. And like hire disabled people to draw the pictures and stuff. That my goal in the day was to do that. So I'm going through the process of publishing it online to have it self-published. So we'll see how it goes. But I mean, I'm still only going to get a small commission from each book because of the printing costs and the admin fee from the publisher, self-publishing. Like I'm going through Amazon, so like they take a percentage. But even if I sold like 100 copies, that's still 100 copies. And so we'll see what happens. But yeah,
I feel
that's why.
for some of that stuff, there's a way to get creative. Like, I don't know, getting an illustrator, like artists. I mean, I don't. Again, I'm not like I can't draw or paint or do anything useful artistically, but like I don't know, maybe creating like a contest, like disabled artists, like like here's the story, best illustration, show me your vision, and not only like will your art get featured in my book, but also like maybe have, instead of like payment, have like maybe they get a percentage of what the profit, and maybe they get to name a character, like maybe you could leave one aside for or I think there's like incentives that would be meaningful. I do believe in like paying disabled people, but I also believe as disabled people, I feel like, yeah, we deserve to be paid for our work, but I'm more concerned about not being paid from non-disabled people than disabled people. I feel like there's the things I'll do for free for another disabled people are endless, honestly. And that's just out of solidarity and wanting other disabled people to succeed.
I think for me it was more like just I feel very awkward around money anyway, just because of my anxiety. So like I wanted to give something back to people, and so I just thought with this book, get it done, see how it goes. I've had some really good feedback, so
Right.
like
That's
I've
awesome.
got I had people who've family of people who've died because of a brain tumor read it, and their feedback's been really helpful and stuff. So we'll see how it goes. And like I started writing the second and third book, so hopefully there'll be some ones like more than just one they can look at and read.
You should make like a little Emma character, but have her be like, could you make me like the villain? I think that would be funny. Like imagine me as like a little girl, because I was a fucking demon. I was a demon child. I'm not even kidding. There was something. I was angry. You know what? I had a right to be. There's a lot of ableism in the world, and I had to deal with it from adults. I had no power except for, again, my emotional stamina and my, I could break. I had gifts.
But yeah, so I've ordered 2 hard copies before I put it online just to see what it looks like and like feel it and like see if I like it and stuff. So that's gonna be good. But I'm
You
also
should do like
gonna
an event of like, I don't know, like there's so, I'm sorry, like now my ADHD is like all the ideas, like nobody needs to hear them. Write them down and then shut up.
no, I did want to do an event, and I think if the book does well and I can get some money, I can then hire a venue and like do like a little press launch after it's like done.
But I'll say first, like, I think we need more children's books. We need more, like, the need for disabled authors, disabled stories is critical. And I am very happy to hear that another one is on its way.
I'll send you it. You can read it. I'll send you it later after this.
Hell yeah, autograph it too.
And then yeah, I'll send you a copy of this one. Like how it I'll send you the PDF and then we can send you a hard copy afterwards. But anyway, let's get into this episode's main topic. So we meant to record this a few weeks ago, as we mentioned. So we were going to look at empathy fatigue. So we thought we'd come back to the issue. And we've got kind of 3 main topics to kind of talk about. So the first kind of statement question is empathy fatigue making the disability advocacy harder for everyone? So we're going to look at how constant advocacy, education and support needs kind of impact both disabled people and their allies, the people around them that help promote those messages, because it is exhausting to kind of have to be met with constant bombardment on Twitter or X, whatever you want to call it, of like the people that are like on the far right or who disagree with EDI and kind of the wokeness element of it, and how we stand up for ourselves can be exhausting and have an impact on us and people around us.
I think that empathy fatigue isn't, I think there's an argument for like the problem, at least with disabled people, isn't empathy fatigue with us. I think it's, society requires advocacy to be performative and never ending and explanatory and in order to be heard. And I think that, making it harder for everyone isn't equally impacted. I think this framing subtly maybe implies that like a disabled person's like burnout is as pressing as the oppression that causes the need for advocacy, if that makes, I don't know, like I feel like the real fatigue is from systems that never change unless someone is like shouting, and disability justice demands structural change that doesn't rely on individual charisma or education or emotional labor to access basic rights. I think what makes advocacy hard is systemic indifference and the expectation that disabled people must endlessly educate others. Which at the end of the day, that's not education, that's exploitation.
I had a conversation with my MP a few weeks ago, and he was like, the change that's been brought around policy decisions that disabled people have disagreed with, that the government have now listened to or are listening to, hopefully. I was like, we shouldn't have had to got to that point. Like, it should have just been a natural thought process within policy decision making that, have we consulted disabled people? How will this impact on disabled people if we're not going to consult them? How can we mitigate the impact of these decisions if they are going to have an impact? How do we safeguard disabled people? But I was like, it is exhausting to stand up and have to advocate and have to do that all the time. Like, it is exhausting. Like, because of my anxiety, I'll constantly worry about, have I said too much? Have I said too little? Have I annoyed anyone? At the same time, I'm dealing with the fact that if I don't stand up for these things, sorry, it sounds like a horse when I sneeze. Like, if I don't stand up for these things, like, what's going to happen? Is it going to have an impact on my life, on my friends' lives? And how do we prevent more people falling into poverty or into emotional well-being damage because of inequality? I feel like I've just waffled there.
I think, I don't think what we did at the beginning. Did we define empathy fatigue? I feel like that's probably important.
No, should we do that now? We can snip it in and put
I think we got a lot, but we can this will be fine. Yeah, like, so let's so how are you defining empathy fatigue? I think that generally, it's, well, first of all, it's used interchangeably with compassion fatigue. So, but it's generally, I think, defined as emotional, physical, and mental exhaustion caused by prolonged exposure to other people's suffering. It can affect a caregiver, a therapist, healthcare workers, activists, and other roles that require sustained emotional labor. I think what it looks like typically when people are thinking about, like, what does this look like? Feeling numb or detached or cynical towards others' pain. Um, uh, the loss of the ability to empathize or care deeply. Maybe like actual physical fatigue or uh, maybe sleep difficulty. Um, yeah, like maybe cognitive or behavioral changes. But I think so. Empathy fatigue focuses on emotional drain due to repeated empathy, um, but it's not the same as burnout. Burnout is broader and can result from like poor support, lack of recognition, or maybe overworking. Um, so like yeah, empathy fatigue is not about not caring anymore. It's about being so repeatedly exposed to suffering, often without meaningful relief or reciprocity or systemic change. So your capacity to care becomes worn thin or damaged or defective. I guess does that is
Yeah,
that
and I
kind
think
of how you would define it, or do you think it's different? That's general.
I
I feel
think
like that's the general definition, but is your definition different?
no, I think that's all right. I think to me, I like to apply things to myself, like when I'm trying to describe things sometimes. So I think, like for me specifically, I think I don't know if it's a neurodivergent thing or if it's just who I am as a person, but like my empathy levels are quite high compared to other people because I think I'm always looking at injustice and inequality and feeling compelled to say something because I want to end that injustice or I want to challenge those perspectives that are different because of like that strong sense of injustice and stuff that neurodivergent people have. And I think empathy fatigue comes into that because it's like it's the repercussions of that constant drain of like feeling the need to kind of challenge those things or deal with it and like carry the burden and the weight of those issues. Um, because it is exhausting to have to constantly talk about issues and preach things that like should just be common practice because it will impact on positively on everyone if we had these things in place, like with policy decisions and stuff. Like if things were accessible, like it would just help so many people. So I think like the burnout and the kind of detachment and numbness, I think that's like a consequence of empathy fatigue. I don't think it's part of it. I think it's like a side effect of it, I guess, is the best way I can describe it. I think you do when you're, I don't know about you as a disabled woman, but for me, I obviously I don't know what it's like to be a woman. I don't know what it's like to be trans or to like, because I know that a lot of neurodivergent people also identify as like LGBTQ plus or trans and things like that. There's a lot of intersectionality. And so like those are things that I don't intersect with. Like I am a white male who's disabled. That's my identity pretty much. Um, but when I see those injustices or when I see my neurodivergent friends who are trans who are being discriminated online, or even if I see someone who I don't know who's being discriminated against because of their disability or neurodivergence, I will internalize that and I'll feel a sadness, like, and a pain.
I don't know if you've ever heard of the term caregiver burnout. I've heard. I think that's a really good example of like, especially I know from my mom, the experience I had with her um the past night. Everybody was so concerned about my mom's husband and how his mental health was. but nobody seemed to prioritize my mom's. It was, how's Mike doing? Oh, it's so hard. And, but I suggested like maybe my mom like might need some support. And it was like, it just wasn't, it's not like it was like, oh, she doesn't have feelings, but it was like, it was sort of like almost, she was supposed to feel that way. It wasn't a problem. It was like, well, like, it was interesting.
And it's not to say that carers don't deserve support and stuff, because they do.
Absolutely.
It's just also important to note that when you are disabled, you often don't have a voice because the systems at place don't allow you to have a voice often.
Yeah.
And unless you have the right support from people and from care teams and people who want to make sure you have a voice, if that doesn't happen, then we've seen countless times and stuff like, I don't know what happens in America, but here after like a child is after a child dies, it's like they have a serious case review. If it's like involved in social, well, often it's social services related. And they'll look at kind of like where the communication failed and stuff, and it's like a document that like sets out all the failings and who failed at what. And often it is down to communication and having that child heard and seen and valued.
Yeah.
And that.
Yeah.
What were you gonna say?
Oh, I was just agreeing. I said, yeah.
And I think that is the same for when we're adults, like especially with disabled and vulnerable adults, like unless someone's there to say actually what do they think, and then that has to be that call like to action has to be recognized by everyone else, and if it's not, then that leads to failings and stuff. And I think as well, like self-advocacy for disabled people, it gets powerful, but it's also draining, and you're allowed to step back and take breaks. Like there's been times when I've been doing advocacy work or like campaign work and stuff, and I've become burnt out and tired and had to take a step back and had to check myself before carrying on because I recognized that actually I was doing danger to myself.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I feel like, and I've had that same experience. It's interesting. I think that empathy fatigue treats emotional exhaustion emotional exhaustion as neutral, but it's actually deeply political. I mean, so it's like who gets tired of witnessing, but who gets tired of surviving? Who gets to stop and who pays? When they do. I think it's really like emotional privilege is what I think. There's like I think we use the term empathy fatigue, but I think we should more often be talking with the term um, emotional privilege. I mean, I feel like empathy fatigue is a product of proximity, but proximity isn't equal. I feel like it becomes a shield for privilege and as a weapon against the oppressed. So like a privileged individual will cite empathy fatigue, and it's often framed as a justification for stepping back from advocacy or from care. As it's meant to signal their sensitivity, um, or as a reason for setting boundaries, often meaning, and by boundaries, that might mean like not engaging with the uncomfortable truths. But when a marginalized person withdraw due to emotional exhaustion, they're uncooperative, they're angry, unstable, or negative, or their detachment is pathologized, or their needs are dismissed because they aren't polite or grateful enough. And that's a double standard, and it's, I think that it's, you know, like, it's sort of like, you're a privileged person gets this, you know, when they say your pain makes me tired, they get empathy. But if, like, we say your pain makes me tired, we get silenced or punished.
And I think there's an issue there around like the guilt spiral around like, are you carrying enough or too much and stuff? And I think especially non-disabled people are looking at disabled people, there tends to be like, they think that if it's a disability related issue, we're going to know everything, or we're going to be able to have a voice on that topic, or understand that topic inside out, and therefore be able to champion it. But there's so much like around disability, like there's digital accessibility, there's the inclusion side, the human rights side, there's different aspects of disability rights, and it's impossible to know all of it and be an expert in everything.
Yeah.
And
I think too, like, I think especially particularly with privileged individuals, when they experience, you know, empathy fatigue, or um, it seems like everybody just starts to rally around them. But like, I don't know if you've experienced this, but I've certainly experienced this where I, like, if I have somebody who's helping me, like a PCA or a caregiver, and I experience this a lot, like in my in my in my family, like when I've needed care and stuff. It's like if anybody experienced burnout, um, immediately the concern was 100% with the person who was assisting me, but like nobody seemed to have taken interest in, like, how does that affect my emotions? Like, I mean, because it does. Like, you feel like it makes you feel like a burden. It makes you feel like, you know, and you'll start to ask for help less, or maybe not demand certain needs be met because you don't want, you're trying to protect it. The energy all goes to protecting the person who has all the power. And it's not like, and like, again, do people who are providing care, and do they need breaks? Yes, they do. Same way, like, parents need breaks. Oh, like, yeah, but like, I think the focus should really be on, like, providing that, making sure everybody's needs are met. But I think what's really missing is, like, we have to center the person with the least power and who's going to be the most impacted. And I think it's kind of backwards the way that we don't do that. I don't know if that makes sense. What was the other? Okay, so we sort of went over, like, I think we answered the first and the third question, but we didn't address how can we care without burning out. I think I mean, do you have any ideas with that? Or I mean, you described how you felt exhausted. What did you need in those moments? You know, like, what do you wish people had understood about, you know, and help, and how they could have assisted or met your needs?
I think in regards to how do we care without like burning out, I think, like, for me, I think when there has been times when I've been so frustrated about an issue, and I've said my point of view, and I've said this is the issue, this is what's going to happen, and I've looked and I've kind of researched into the topic and stuff, and I've got my thoughts together, and I've gone to someone and said, this is the issue, this is what's going to happen. I've said I'm not an expert, but just understand this is the point of view. I think when they then dismiss that, or say, oh, that's nice, or yeah, we'll do something about it, but they're not, I think that then means I still carry that burden with me. I'm worrying about that years later, because I might have the thought and go, oh, what happened about that? Or like then start thinking about it and then start being anxious and stuff. And that does lead to overwhelm and stuff, and that feeling of being burnt out. And I think what I needed was someone just to listen. And I think that's where allyship comes in and is really important, because I think non-disabled people and disabled people all play a part in this, because we can all listen to other people, understand perspective and point of view, and not necessarily have the answers. And you don't need to answer something sometimes. To sit with someone and say, what's the issue that you're going through, and how can we make small changes to get there together? Not, I'm going to tell you how we're going to get there. Like, let's work this out together, because that makes it more meaningful, but also prevents issues happening further down the line. If everyone,
Yeah. I think too, like, I think I think often people are set up to fail when it comes, and I think, if you're somebody who's going to be doing a service, like if you're volunteering, being a carrier, or being an ally, or being an activist, I think it's really important to know how you function, what your needs are, and be very clear about, like, okay, you know what, I only have the energy to work, to do tasks between, this time and this time. I need, I need to be able to, eat my lunch every single day. I need to be able to take breaks. I need to be able to, you know, you know, have somebody tap in my place when I'm feeling overwhelmed. I need the ability to, I don't know, like I think I feel like it's lack of boundaries and lack of respect for those boundaries, and the expectations being so high on all sides of it. And I think that sets everybody up to fail.
and I think what you said is really important. And I think just to kind of bring this to kind of a gentle close and to give a call to action, so I think it's always important to, I know we've done it in the past, like give listeners something to listen to take away and stuff. And I think this week we're inviting you to take one step forward towards caring without burning out. So whether you're disabled or non-disabled, if you're disabled, give yourself permission to rest or say no without kind of the guilt that comes with that. And if you're non-disabled, offer practical help to someone without making them ask for it. But also understanding that if someone doesn't want to open up or share, that they have boundaries in place for a reason.
And also, if you're know what you're about, I mean, don't just offer help. Offer, like, what can you specifically do? Like, I will say, one thing I'm hearing a lot of people say to me recently is, like, if you need anything, let me know. I'm like, okay, pay my rent. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it's, and I don't need that, but I'm saying, like, I think what would be so helpful is, like, I think people have a general idea of, like, what their limitations are and what they're able to provide for, like, in terms of support. And it's like, name that, because it'll be appreciated. But when you give people the idea that you're willing to do anything and everything and you have no boundaries, that's setting yourself up, and the other person is setting yourself up to fail, and that other person to feel to be let down and you know uh harmed. So, like, instead of saying, like, let me know if you need anything, maybe it's, let me know if you need a ride somewhere. I can provide it. I have a car. I'm available at this time usually. Or let me know if you need some, need somebody to cook a meal for you. I usually cook throughout the week, and I'm happy to, do double the recipe. Or, let me know if you need help cleaning your house, doing your laundry, like stuff like that. Like, or let me know if you want to talk. Let me know if you want to talk. I'm always available at after work to chat for a couple, for an hour and a half.
Mm.
Feel free to call, or let me know if you want, like, because I think being so generic. I mean, I don't know about you, but like when somebody's like, you know, call me, something so generic, I'm like, well, I'm not gonna do that. I'm not gonna fucking call you. The fuck? No. Like,
And I think,
like it sucks, and then you feel more lonely, and the other person is like, well, why didn't you like come to me? Because that you like, you have no boundaries, and now like I didn't know what that meant.
and it's also the mental health neurodivergent side of things, that if you give someone who's neurodivergent an option or options, it's easier for them to decide than just saying, let me know if you need anything, because someone who's neurodivergent doesn't
Yeah.
understand social cues and social norms that you might as a non-disabled person or non-neurodivergent person. Neurotypical, that's the word. But
Yeah. And I think if you're somebody who's part of a marginalized group, like I think it's important to whatever effort you do to whatever work you do, first of all, it falls on your lap anyway. You don't really have a choice. I think every marginalized group, yeah, they have a regular job, but the unpaid work is teaching and supporting, and and that's exhausting. And I think if you need to step away from it, that's okay. It doesn't make you any less of a of having any less importance or value. And I think also, I don't know, just like if anybody gives you a hard time, like that's, I don't know. Like, I think just trust yourself and and know that your boundaries help you and help others.
100%. So that's a wrap. Ooh. So that's a wrap on this episode of Dude, Where's My Ramp? Thanks so much for spending this time with us. If anything we've discussed today has triggered any emotions, memories, or mental health struggles, please know that you're not alone. We've included a list of support resources in the show notes with trusted organizations in both the UK and US for people who are there to listen, help, and guide you. You can DM us on social media. Feel free to you can find us on social media. Feel free to DM us if you want to reach out. We'd love to hear from you. If you've enjoyed this episode, please leave a review. Also, don't forget to share this episode. The more we spread the word, the louder our collective voice becomes. Tune in every Monday for a new episode. More stories, more laughs, and probably more rants about ramps and the mental health of disabled life. Until next time, take care of yourself, your ramps, and each other. Remember, we're all in this together.
Go Wildcats!
What team?
Wildcats! Get your head in the game.